Be Carnage. Good Lord, and good night, nurse. I am shocked. I'm really shocked. I was kind of betting against the analysts here on the high side. The over-under for them was like around 60 million. In a video I did Friday on the Thursday night preview figures that came out after we saw that it was 16% ahead of its predecessor from 2018 at 11.6 million versus 10 million in Thursday night previews for the first Venom, I said, I think the analysts are a little on the light side at this point. I'm going to go ahead and bump those projections. I think this thing is going to be maybe could be north of 70. I think I said as high as 80. I don't remember if I said that in the Friday video. I think I did. Go check it out. I might be remembering wrong. But I know Saturday morning after I saw the total Friday take coming in at almost 38 million, I was beside myself. And I said, definitely we're going to see 80. I did not think this thing would break 90. I'm really stunned. And we're going to talk about why this movie, Venom 2, is probably going to wind up, or at least could very well wind up being the first, at least domestically, the first legitimate blockbuster in terms of financial returns for the studio on a big budget action movie. And I know I got some haters out there. Oh, I got Shang Chi. He's going to talk about Shang Chi again. Yeah, I am. I am. Because of at this point, effectively, and again, I don't have anything personally against this movie. I started out doing videos on it from a financial standpoint because this was Marvel's first big foray, Shang Chi, into Phase 4. This is what they were launching Phase 4 with. This was the first big MCU new Phase 4 movie of the year. I know Black Widow came out before it, but Black Widow was really kind of an excessively delayed Phase 3, should have been years ago, and it was a hybrid release. Shang-Chi was a theatrical exclusive, as is Venom, but there's a qualifier with that, and we're going to talk about that as well. And this is important to understand from movie metrics because I've done 2 parts so far. I still owe you guys a 3rd part, and thank you for being here. And before I go any further, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Do share out the link, and please drop a comment below. Those are so important. YouTube loves that stuff, and this audience continues to grow because you guys have been so awesome, and I thank you all for being here. So why is Venom 2 different? What makes it different than Shang-Chi in terms of how we're going to calculate the success rate of this film? Well, let's first take a look at this. All right, so let's backtrack again to Black Widow, which was a hybrid release. It was a concurrent release on Disney Plus Premier Access and theaters, which means you could go see it in theaters or you could pay $29 on Disney Plus and you would basically own the film forever, never have to buy it again. As long as you kept up your Disney Plus subscription. Shang-Chi came out, and Disney decided, as Bob Chapek correctly stated during an investor call at the last quarterly meeting, that Shang-Chi would provide an interesting set of data points moving forward. It would be an interesting experiment to get those data points, rather, and Disney would make decisions from there. Well, of course, Disney has since then announced that they are going to do 45-day theatrical exclusive windows for all the movies remaining on the Disney slate in 2021. Now, what's important about that statement is that it is a 45-day window. That's not the traditional theatrical window. Usually, if you think back to pre-pandemic era movies, pre-lockdown movies, especially big tentpole blockbusters like we have here, like we had with supposedly was supposed to be Shang-Chi, Black Widow, big budget, $150, $200 million suckers. Those movies typically had a run of anywhere from 90 to 120 days on average. Those movies would linger in the box office for weeks, especially if they were successful. Well, now with Disney only committing to half of that or a third of that in theatrical exclusivity in order to get these films onto Disney Plus as quickly as possible to build a subscriber base there, much like what HBO and Warner Media is doing with HBO Max and their concurrent releases, but that's another story. Wait for part 3 of the movie theater box office discussion because this is going to entail it, and I'm kind of glad I waited for Venom 2 to come out because this is going to validate everything that we were going to talk about in that video. Sony Pictures has not taken that route. Sony Pictures has stuck to the traditional kind of theatrical windows, meaning they're not qualifying their contracts with the exhibitors like AMC or Regal Theaters or Cinemark or Marcus Theaters. They're not qualifying these contracts with limited stipulations in terms of days of exclusivity. So when Sony puts a movie like Venom 2 into the box office, they're not saying, hey, you're going to get it for 45 days and then we're going to take it back. In case you didn't already know, Disney announced, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, or maybe a week and a half ago, that Shang Chi is indeed going to hit Disney Plus, and it's going to hit Disney Plus on November 10th or thereabout, meaning it's going to hit Disney Plus for free, by the way, free. No, they have not said anything about Premier Access. I see people talking about this and how much more money it's going to make on Disney Plus. The answer is zero, at least to this point, because every time Disney has put a movie onto Premier Access thus far, they have said the words Premier Access in those releases. That word, to my knowledge, at this point, to my knowledge, has not been used. So that means Shang-Chi is going to be dropping on Disney Plus for free, which at that point, once it's out in public, unless you're really anxious to go see it, you're probably not going to go see it at that point. Venom 2, however, there is no such stipulation to my knowledge. And to this point, again, Sony does not have its own proprietary streaming service, so why would they? This is a movie that they're going to sell out, or lease out rather, to Netflix, I think down the road, maybe in 3 or 4 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. I don't quite remember. I think they had a deal with Netflix on this. I could be wrong. Drop a comment below if I'm thinking of a different streaming service. But what's important to note is that's going to be a revenue driver for Sony. I think Sony's been the smartest player in the game with these movies by not creating their own damn streaming service, because that's what's been murdering pictures at the box office. Disney knows this all too well at this point, and it gives them problems with people like ScarJo, who then turn around and sue. So here we are with Venom 2 in its opening weekend. Let's look at a few key pieces of information in this. $90.1 million at the domestic box. Another key thing to understand about Venom 2. Venom 2 and James Bond, No Time to Die, have basically tacitly agreed to alternate their releases in 2 weeks, right? So we're getting Venom 2 released domestically here in the U.S. in its native market, and the international market is basically bone dry. Venom 2 is not coming out across the globe until next weekend, but mostly 2 weekends from now, on October 15th, thereabout. James Bond, on the other hand, has released internationally and so far has performed fairly well, has not released in the U.S. yet. It will come out next weekend because they didn't want to fight with Venom in the domestic market, and Sony Pictures didn't want to fight with Bond in the international market. So smart move by the two of them. So we'll have to wait to see what the international numbers are, but a $90.1 million 3-day haul, opening weekend haul, beating Black Widow's $80 million, beating Shang-Chi's roughly $75 million. And no, it wasn't 90-something million. You cannot include Monday if we're going to do this correctly. If you want to do that, you have to wait to see what Venom's Monday numbers are as well. But of course, Labor Day, we always go by 3-day weekends here, okay, when we're comparing films, because otherwise we're comparing apples and oranges, folks. Anyway, that being said, it's going to kind of shut the door on Shang-Chi. I think it did about $6 million in the domestic box this weekend. I think it's currently sitting at around 380 some odd million. It's getting closer to the profitability realm, but it's not there yet. I know some other folks out there, friends of mine, people that I love and respect on YouTube, great people that had lower thresholds than I did for its profitability. I get that. We just kind of simply disagree on the math, and this is why. And this is the key piece of this. I want to go down here so we can look at, the news gets even better for Hollywood and theaters. Cinemark, one of the country's largest 3 chains, enjoyed the biggest October weekend, opening weekend in history, as well as its biggest October weekend overall. The chain is also reporting that it could go down as the second biggest October weekend of all time for the entire industry, blah, blah, blah. So all of this noise about the coof this and the coof that and the pandemic and people aren't going out there, I've been telling you since Shang-Chi came out. You look at the football stadiums, you look at the concert venues, you look at people are out. They're wearing masks, they're not wearing masks, people are out. And if Hollywood gives them stuff they want to go back to theaters to see, they will see it. And in fairness to Shang-Chi, Shang-Chi, of course, had a decent opening weekend from a performance standpoint. Still doesn't mean that it's going to be profitable. The difference here is what I started out earlier with, is because we can't calculate the numbers for a movie like Venom like we can Shang-Chi. Why? Simply put, as I stated, Disney right now is putting stipulations and qualifications on contracts with these theaters, with Cinemark, with Regal, with AMC, so on and so forth. You're going to get this movie for 45 days. Well, if you understand, traditionally, where theaters would cough up higher shares of the revenues to movie studios in the opening weeks, with the promises that the movie theaters would get the bigger share, the lion's share, as time went on. And we're talking again, minimum 60-day, but 90-day, sometimes 120-day runs for bigger, more popular movies. If Disney's only promising you 45 days, are you really going to give Disney the same contract that you're going to give to Sony? No, you're not. You are not. So if there is a movie out there right now, or movies, or a movie studio who is actually able to, I would say we could make a reasonable assumption to where they are still able to negotiate the more favorable pre-pandemic, pre-coof terms, 2019 terms for Blockbuster. And of course, Disney reportedly had some of the best contracts with these for the biggest films, and the ones that came, especially like Avengers and things like that from the MCU, and even the Star Wars movies that were poop, they were still able to get it because it said Star Wars on it. They're not able to get that kind of stuff with Shang Chi. They certainly were not able to get it with Black Widow. I can promise you that. Sony, however, with Venom 2, with no strings attached for theaters, probably a much greater chance. So the point is this. If we assume that Venom 2, and I don't know for sure, I haven't seen the exact figures yet, because I don't know if they've been released. But if we assume that Venom 2 had a production budget of around $150 million, the first Venom movie's production budget was around $110. You can certainly assume that they spent more on the second, based on the success of the first. Plus, you also had Woody Harrelson in there. You had a second symbiote to animate, like Carnage. There's more cost involved. It's 3 years later, so let's assume 150. Let's easily assume another $80 to $100 million of marketing from Sony, without much question. This was a movie that got delayed. I think it's a relatively safe assumption we're in the same $250 or so million total all-in costs that we were for Shang-Chi. But if Sony Pictures gets the same gross box offices that Shang-Chi got, they're probably walking home with a good bit more money than Disney did on Shang-Chi, just because of the nature of the contracts with the theatrical exhibitioners. So this is why I'm still sticking to Shang-Chi really has to get to somewhere probably around $450 million at the barest of minimums to get to that point. Because if you figure around 225 to 250 million on that movie, 150 production, about 100 million in marketing. Marvel movies, they haven't spent, the last time they spent under that was Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And that was a sequel to a very well-known bunch of characters, and Disney didn't have to spend as much, but $100 million these days on movies like this is pretty normal. So that means that if they're getting an average of 50% of the box office take, that's why originally I said about $500 million, because again, Disney is not getting the deals that they're used to get, because they're not giving the theaters the same terms. The theaters have no incentive to offer them the same ridiculous terms that by the time that they'd be in the money-making territory 5, 6, 7 weeks out, Disney has already pulled the movie from their theater chains and put it on Disney+. Why would you agree to that? You wouldn't. But with Sony, you might. And with other studios like this that are doing this. Dune, I wish to say that I think would be more financially successful for the studio. I think it's going to be a box office hit. I don't know how successful it's going to be to Warner Media, depending on what they were able to strike, because the thing is going on day and date with HBO Max. So again, it disincentivizes theaters to agree to the kind of terms they were giving theaters when that didn't happen 2 years ago. So in any case, let me know what your thoughts and comments are below. I think this movie is going to easily bust the 225, might get to the $250 million mark here in the States. That would be roughly a 2.25. If we look at Shang-Chi, did about a 2.68, which is pretty respectable. Although, again, Disney's still in the red. But if we apply that to this, you're going to be in that 250 range, I think. I think this is going to grow some legs because of, obviously, this movie has now introduced Venom officially into the MCU. So this is something special. I think Sony has a big winner here. I'm interested to see when this hits the international market. Bear in mind, October is going to be jam-packed full of big blockbusters. Especially, across the globe, we've got Venom. And then next week, we've got James Bond. And then 2 weeks after that, we have Frank Herbert's Dune that is directed by Denis Villeneuve. So I can't wait to see that one. But again, that one's going to be on HBO Max as well. So we have a very, very, very packed October for the box office, and it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of competition out there. But I think, again, this is a sign that people are willing to go back. This movie has bested the first Venom movie in its opening weekend from 3 years ago. So that tells me a lot. That tells me that people are willing to get back out there. They want to get back out there. They just want the content back that they enjoyed before. And Hollywood, I've been saying for months, Hollywood has a content problem. Hopefully this is waking them up. So anyway, Again, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Good to see everybody. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that share, that notification bell. And of course, until next time, take care.